Hello everybody, Thor again today. Playing a little bit of Chaosbane, Dwarven Slayer, checking this game out. Got it on pretty good sale on Steam. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about navigating the economy. I mentioned in my previous video that I had some thoughts about what people should be doing in the economy today. This is going to be a little bit of what I've learned over the years, how things have changed a little bit, what I think people, especially younger people, should be doing these days in order to kind of find something productive and meaningful in the world that we find ourselves in today. Figuring out what you want to do is not an easy thing. I struggled with it for a long time. In a lot of ways, I still don't know what I want to do with the rest of my time on this earth. If you haven't figured it out, I'm a little bit of an older person. So back in the era that I grew up in, people talked a lot about maybe working for some company for 25 years, getting pensions, unlimited overtime, making a good life for themselves that way. Others might have talked about going to the university. I was one of those people. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do while I was in university, but that was what people did back then, much like today. You would get a degree in engineering or business school, law, something like that. I was blessed to be born in an era where it was reasonable to pay your way through university while working part-time jobs, as long as you weren't going to like a top tier school like Harvard or something like that, but you'd probably have your parents paying for you if you decided to do that. And I think this was probably at the cusp of the last time that any of this was feasible for anybody. The globalization that we find ourselves in has kind of taken the world over, and things have become more and more difficult for the average person. The other thing is, companies have not changed for the better over the years. The waves of productivity and computerization that we were excited about at the turn of the century, that were supposed to change everything for the better, really didn't do a whole heck of a lot to make the workers better off. We all got a lot more work with less and less people being employed, hiring freezes, bonuses getting cut, all in the names of a couple extra pennies on EPS reports, shareholder bonuses, bonuses to the CEO, things like that. We're unfortunately finding ourselves in the later stages of this global economic cronyism system that has been fostering over the last 25, maybe 50 years, I would say. It's tough in America. Our neighbors in Europe and Asia are not doing all that much better. They have their own struggles with this broken economic silliness that we find ourselves in these days. Just to take a step back, I don't want to turn this video into some kind of political statement on economic systems. There are a lot of channels out there for that. There are a lot of thinkers out there with various agendas claiming that this or that, usually material solution to our current situation is the right prescription. All kinds of grifts are going on, left, right, center. They generally horribly miss the point of how economic systems are supposed to function long term. Most every solution or prescription that I've seen ignores the reality of the world that we find ourselves in right now. As technological advances are making a lot of these older systems moot. Trying to fit these 18th, 19th, 20th century ideas of economic models and systems into the world that we find ourselves, that's advanced in many ways to post scarcity, does not really offer any young people any practical, useful ideas on how to figure out what to do with themselves, how to fit into things. There are not a lot of practical, useful guides out there for younger people, I think, that take this current reality into account. I mean, there are a lot of people that are trying to sell you something. Red pill people will tell you that the world is going one way. You've got a lot of people that want to force radical solutions on people that have been tried before, that don't really do much, and I think are swinging at the wrong targets, frankly. A lot of these old ideas just don't work. Any number of OK Boomer memes and any number of videos that people are putting out there are telling you that kind of what we all know. I mean, things are not working out for people, and the solutions that are being offered, especially by the political system, by people that take these things seriously, just do not work, haven't worked, can't work, etc. Political solutions are not going to put food on the table for you. Getting your guy into power or your girl into power does not change things. I think we've learned that clearly over the last 20 years. You're not going to find what you want in politics. That's, we need to move on. We need to move on from that, and we need to live our lives. What is the point to this? I'm rambling a little bit here, but what are people actually supposed to do these days? The old stable jobs are not there to the same degree that they used to be anymore. Going to a university is really expensive, and it's just going to lead you into a life of, frankly, debt slavery to, some government organization or something like that, whoever's running these things these days. And you might be saddled with low paying jobs. Last time I looked, engineering jobs, entry level business jobs are paying about what I could expect to make when I graduated a long time ago. The salaries have not kept up with inflation, and it does not make sense to spend, in some cases, 10 or 20 times more than what I spent on my university education to pursue these fields. There are better solutions out there, I think. My 25, 30 odd years in the working world since I was a teenager has taught me a few things. I don't claim that this is going to work for everybody, but I do want to talk about some of the things that I think everyone needs to be doing to get through all this and maybe not fall into hope or despair or, hit these levels of black pill, looking for crazy solutions on the internet that doesn't work. I don't know if this is actually going to help anyone. Everyone's situation is a little different, but it has worked for me, and I want to talk a little bit about what hasn't worked for me over the years where I've kind of ran into a few pitfalls. The first thing that I think is important, and I talked about this in one of my earlier videos, is social connections are unbelievably important as you move through life. The more people that you make friends with, the more people that you help from a genuine place of caring for them, and maybe in some extent like altruism, but it might not necessarily be that, you're going to find more access to things and more opportunities will become available to you. What I want to be perfectly clear on is this is not the type of bullshit that you find on LinkedIn, which is a horrible business fantasy, almost dystopian level of nonsense of a social media platform that is hilarious, sad, and frankly disingenuous to levels that I can't even comprehend and fully explain. It deserves its own video. And maybe people have gone over this before, but you don't need to be that. It's horribly sanguine and unbelievably fake to the level of like Instagram filter fake, and it's tiresome. You cannot and should not be a damn automaton or some kind of corporate shill. You have to be real. And what I mean by real is you have to be genuine, you have to protect and keep your soul intact, and you have to make these genuine connections with people. Part of the reason why I started this channel is I believe that there's so much fakeness out there, and people want genuine connections. And when they find somebody that has this level of realness and authenticity, they gravitate towards that because most of the interactions that people have in their daily lives are with people that are so fake and obviously out for something or towing the corporate line that you kind of become a beacon, I would say. I've spent most of my life pushing back against a lot of this, frankly, dehumanization in the corporate world. and dodging a lot of this disingenuous corporate speak that comes from MBAs. And I went to university with them. These people, they don't understand how to run a business and how to interact with people. It's not honest. Uh, I mean, people these days, they're bombarded at work if they have a white collar job with these endless rah rah emails, HR department insanity, corporate reprogramming programs that force you into certain ways of thinking, the we are a family type of messages, which frankly just does not exist. They try to force it, and you can't force things like this. So if you can maintain your authenticity and find genuine social connections that you can make through your university with people that haven't swallowed the Kool-Aid, I think that's going to go a long way to finding something that you can work in and you can be happy with, that you won't have to sell your soul. And I think that's important because over the long term, if you believe in some of these things that I think people are losing connection with, like the authenticity and everything like that. I think that working in for a lot of these companies actually damages you on a profound level. Most people, they go to work and they quietly tolerate it. I couldn't do that. And I know there are people out there that put up with it for various reasons, but I think that for the younger generation especially, they're not beholden to some of the things that we're beholden to, and I like to see that. So beyond all that, what should you be doing? In my second video, I talked about you need to be creating things, and that extends to the workforce. You should not be shuffling paper around in your day-to-day life. You shouldn't be spending nothing but hours in Excel workbooks, Excel documents. This is not good for you. You need to find something that you can do. And I don't necessarily mean something that you can do with your hands, although that's certainly one career path that you can take. I think that what you need to be doing with yourself is figuring out how you can offer value to other people using your creativity. That is probably going to make you the most happy. And creativity doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to draw a picture or I'm going to make a YouTube video or something like that. It can be as simple as selling a good product. I mean, you can find happiness in sales careers, you can find happiness with merchandising, you can find happiness working in a warehouse. You can find happiness with the trades, and these type of things all involve more creativity working with your hands than getting yourself into these corporate white collar fields that ultimately kind of drain your soul in a way, is what I would say. If I had to do things all over again today, I would not be spending my time in the university, or at least I would get a company to pay for it. There are a lot of entry level jobs out there, even in something as simple as retail or working for, big box retailer or online retailers. They have amazing tuition reimbursement programs, and many times they will train you to work in some kind of a field in the trades or engineering or robotics or something like this where you can actually work with your hands and do something creative and productive that frankly is not easy to replace with a lot of this AI stuff that's going on. That is a consideration that you have to look into. A lot of these desk jobs, I feel, are going to go away or at least be consolidated to the point where you are not going to find an easy road with this. AI can be used to reasonably competently do a lot of the things, especially the repetitive things that white collar workers do. It is very difficult, at least at the moment, for AI and robotics to replace even the most simplest of physical tasks. And I've worked in companies that have been trying to do this, and they're finding that it's going to take a long time in order to do this. So if I had to start all over again, this would be a path that I would do. The 2020s are not kind of what any of us expected. I think, and coming through the difficulty of the early 2020s with, working from home and the job market in some ways collapsing, in some ways offering a lot of opportunity, has made an environment where I would say creative people and people that are forward thinking have an opportunity. The world of our parents and our grandparents no longer exists. The people that are telling you that you can work for a company for 30 years, the okay boomer memes, that world doesn't exist anymore. And anybody that has their eyes open can see it. It's not the older people's fault. They just don't realize that the world has moved on. And it's important for you to make sure that you understand that the world has moved on too. Other tips that I would say can help you navigate this: it's generally better to work for a private company than it is to work for a public company. Public companies are beholden to shareholders, not you. Private companies, to some extent, are a little bit insulated from that. It's not going to be perfect in a lot of cases, but generally speaking, it will be better for you if you can find a private company to work for. Working for yourself is something that I think you can consider, but I'm not going to try to sell you that this is the only way that you can live. There is nothing wrong with working for somebody else, and what a lot of people do not realize is that working for yourself is very difficult. You have got to put in way more time, energy, effort, and risk if you're working for yourself than with any other, even I would say minimum wage or quote dead end job out there that gives you a paycheck every week and supplies you with benefits. I've worked for myself, I've done freelancing work, and you put in a lot of hours. Most of them are unpaid, and that is not for everybody. It suited my personality well, but to be honest, these days I still work for companies to get benefits and steady pay to fund projects that I want to do. I think it's also important to make sure that you're interacting with people, and you can do that day to day at your job, interacting with customers. There's good and there's bad to all that. I mean, we've all had bad days with our coworkers or customers. It is what you make of it, but learning how to deal with difficult situations is important for your growth. And if you do nothing but avoid that, I think you are selling yourself short. People that can solve other people's problems are always in demand. And generally speaking, if you have to solve somebody's problem, it's not going to be the smoothest interaction at first. You have to ask a lot of questions. You have to figure out what they need. This is a good skill to develop and have for anything that you get into, including something that you're going to do on your own. You can't hide from people. The economy, the way that it's set up, you have to interact with people. You can't just sit at home, do nothing, or do something trivial on the computer. You have to provide service to somebody, and that does involve getting out of your comfort zone a lot of times and going out and talking to people. So, figuring out something that you can do for that is key in order to survive in this economy. There's no easy solution to a lot of this. You cannot sit at home and be a day trader. The people that are trying to sell you financial stuff on the internet are making money selling you stuff. I think that should be pretty obvious. They prey on desperate people. Same thing with a lot of the quote unquote grift out there. You have to take things for what they are. There is no free lunch. There is no easy answer to a lot of this. There is no $500 program that is going to teach you what you need to know. You need to get out there and you need to be making these social connections. You need to be providing services that people actually want, and you have to be solving their problems in order to thrive. People who can solve other people's problems will never want for anything. If you can do that, you will not go hungry. That is the advice that I want to offer for that. I have other thoughts based on, the industries and things like that, but I think this is a pretty decent point to kind of slow down and end the video. It's getting up to about 20 minutes. I did want to talk in a future video about opportunities overseas because I have spent some time overseas. And I did want to talk specifically about a few countries that I have experience with that a lot of people I think are interested in, and what is good and what is bad about that. I've lived in one of the popular East Asian countries, and I've lived in some European countries. So I did want to talk a little bit about that and the advantages and I would say disadvantages compared with living in the United States. That's really all I wanted to talk about during this one. It's kind of a ramble. Like I said, I don't go into this channel trying to make, you know, any kind of sales pitch or anything like that. I'm just getting my thoughts out there and listening to them back and trying to maybe get a little bit of a catalog going of things that I've learned over the years. Hopefully, you found it a little bit interesting and you enjoyed the gameplay, if nothing else, on a game that I think people should take a look at. Um, I'm having a lot of fun with it. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Hopefully, everybody has found their path in the economy or is working on that. I know things can be tough out there, but people need people out there doing work, even if it's picking up something simple. It's not horribly complicated to find some kind of work. The great work, it might be a little bit more difficult, but finding work should not be too challenging if you apply yourself out there. So that's all I've got to say for today. Thank you for listening to the video, and I hope to see you in another one. Leave a comment or whatever if you have any thoughts about navigating the economy. I'm curious to see what other people are going through a little bit as we move through the midpoint of the 2020s. But until then, I hope everybody has a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend whenever you caught this, and keep your feet on the ground out there.